Hello everybody, welcome to this session, MSIX-Package Masterclass. My name is Ryan Mangan and today we're going to be talking about all things MSIX and MSIX-Package. Just as a caveat though, as there's only 50-60 minutes of this session for us to kind of talk about these technologies, I can't possibly cover everything, but I'll do my very best to kind of get through as much content as possible. So let's get started. So, my name is Ryan Mangan. I've been in the EUC industry for quite some time, and I specialize in workplace deployment, application delivery, and performance optimization. And you can find out some of the stuff I've been up to over the last couple of years on my blog, ryanmangansitblog.com. Also, in March 2022, this year, as is the recording, I created or produced the book Mastering Azure Virtual Desktop, which is a full 731-page book, which has everything you possibly need to know about setting up, designing, and deploying, and configuring, and doing all sorts of interesting things with Azure Virtual Desktop. And you can see here that there's 2 discount codes. So for everybody in America, Amazon.com, you can use the Amazon code, which is 25AVD. And then for if you want to order from the packet site, the publisher, you can use a AVD 220. And as you can see, the start and expiry dates for them are also on there. So now I've covered the kind of basics for this session, let's get started. So before we start talking about applications, packaging and delivery to workspaces, what I first wanted to do is kind of talk about the fundamentals of cloud economics, just as a reminder, or really just to kind of talk about, well, set the scene really for what we're going to talk about and why people want to kind of offload applications and things to separate storage, etc., etc. So on-premises versus cloud technology. So cloud has slowly, rapidly, I'd say now in the last couple of years, kind of taken traction or gained traction in the industry. More and more organizations are moving towards a cloud platform or a hybrid type of environment. And then there's some organizations which, to my surprise, have decided to go for a cloud first strategy. I always thought that people be reticent to do that, but as we've seen through industry today, a lot of organizations are embracing cloud and moving forward. The challenges you've got when you buy on-premises physical hardware and equipment and configuration is the capital costs, but also the challenge of utilization, consumption, the consumption of that physical asset. There's a lot of idle in a lot of these deployments. There's unpredictable workloads. You can't really scale because you've got to go out and buy more. It's not very simple to scale very quickly. And also, you then may have a predictable workload, and all that resource is pretty much being just wasted for 3 years because there's no need for that resource to increase over that period of time. So when you're looking at on-premises versus cloud, the benefits of the cloud is you pay for what you use. You can really kind of granular go down and control exactly what you're actually going to consume in terms of resource, and obviously the costs with that. And some of the benefits of using cloud as well is that you don't have a large capital upfront cost. You essentially will pay on the consumption of the resources you essentially consume, as I already said. So now we've got the kind of basics of cloud economics out of the way, let's talk about apps. So in a workspace, we've got the workspace itself, its infrastructure, and we've got the user data and the profile, and then in the middle, which essentially underpins everything within the workspace, because users use apps, right? That's pretty much what people do. They don't go on a workspace and just look at the pretty kind of desktop wallpaper. They may do while they're drinking a cup of tea, but the whole purpose of the workspace is to deliver applications so that the user can get on with their job or the task they've been given using said apps. The challenge we have though in industry, and it's becoming an endemic, is that we still have applications in use which were around 20 years ago. Applications underpin everything we do, as I just briefly said. And interestingly, the majority of projects today in industry are either stuck, slowed down, or taking an incredibly long time to deliver due to applications. And this can be no installation media, this can be not knowing the apps, someone's left, custom development, there's no information whatsoever on these applications. There's all this massive list of different reasons why organizations are unable to migrate to the modern workspace. Profile data was a challenge in a virtual workspace a few years ago, and things like user profile disks from Microsoft on remote desktop services wasn't that great. There was still challenges. And then when the likes of FS Logics came along and was able to, do a good job of actually redirecting the profile using filter driver, that solved a big part of the puzzle. However, we're still in the mix with trying to solve the application challenge, which I don't believe is going to go away anytime soon. So when we look at the typical pain points of VDI, we look at how people deliver their applications. So very common is the applications are delivered on the core template image, the gold image, and then obviously that image is then pushed out to session hosts and people then log on. The challenge with the image is previously people were using the same image and they were going and updating it and then sealing it again, updating it, sealing it. The biggest issue you've got with that is that there can be image corruption, there can be problems with Windows updates, there can be things which cause you having to rebuild a new image. If you have made, I don't know, 300, 400 changes over a 3-year time frame on that particular image, and you have to then rebuild it, you need to make sure you've got very good documentation to know exactly what you applied and the changes you made. And the truth of it is, not many organizations have that level of detail to be able to do that. So that's a kind of nightmare. And then obviously patching the operating system, patching the applications is also challenging. And then app layering, something I'm still fond of in terms of concept over the years, which was originally Unidesk and then went over to the likes of Citrix, was Citrix layering. Is, you're building layers, and the challenge with that is it's time consuming. And some of the larger organizations which are using this technology in anger tend to spend quite a lot of time within a month carrying out updates and changes to them layers. And that also has a significant cost to the business because of the resourcing costs to kind of be able to deliver that. Whereas these highly skilled people could be put to better use within the organization to deliver, not business as usual is essentially what this is, but more capital projects for this organization. So when we just kind of recap a bit of nostalgia for some of us, going back to Windows 1, which was released in 1985, and as you can see, the UI got improved as it went along. The kind of, I call it the most significant release for Windows. The initial kind of big milestone was Windows 3.1, and then where it came mainstream, this is my opinion obviously, was 95. Everybody I knew had a Windows 95, 286s and things was not so common. And then, as you can see, we got to Windows 98, which again was probably one of my most popular operating systems in time. Then to Windows 8 XP. Vista was a big challenge because Microsoft decided to change how users function, user profiles, document settings changed to users and program data. And then obviously we moved into Windows 7, which was a very, very strong operating system, which is used globally by billions of people. Windows 8, not so fun. And then Windows 10 was good. But then we got Windows 11. And there was a message some time ago that Windows 11 would never exist. It would always be Windows 10 and it'd be continually updated. Windows 11 is here with a nice new UI. And the reason why there's a picture of a map on the screen is, things have moved around slightly and you've got to find them. However, the reason why I'm saying this and talking about this is you need to be on Windows 11 and Windows 10 really. Windows 11 because there's a roadmap for the deprecation of Windows 10. And also Windows 11 has all of the fun features. So things like shared package containers for MSIX, which I'll talk about briefly, latest APIs to do certain things within that operating system. So if you're not on Windows 11 yet, and you've not even considered looking at it as a roadmap, if you are moving to new workspaces, etc., I would recommend that you look at the possibility of getting over to Windows 11 sooner than you possibly originally thought, because of the benefits in terms of what the operating system is, and two, because obviously there is a roadmap now for goodbye to Windows 10. So MSIX, everybody knows about MSIs, or the majority of people know about an MSI or an X installer. But MSIX, it's an MSI with an X on the end of it. What does that really mean? Well, essentially, MSIX is not an MSI, it's not an installer, it's a container type package. And it's been around for some time. And if anybody uses Xboxes or play Xboxes, it is the same technology which delivered to said users who were playing games. When it comes to packaging, this is a really strong message to everybody in the industry. I think that people need to kind of acknowledge this, is you need to forget everything you've learned about packaging, because MSIX isn't MSI. It isn't a typical XE. The packaging processes are completely different. So even though you may have lots and lots of experience in packaging, which is great, you need to kind of change your thought process and mindset on MSIX. It's very hard to do that because people are like, oh, why is it changed? Why is it different? People don't like change. Human nature, we don't like change. But the truth of it is MSIX is very different to previous packaging technologies, and the whole concept of how MSIX works, which I'll go into, is very different to running a application 100% natively on the OS. So obviously I've already alluded to what MSIX has been doing, and obviously in an Xbox, but it's been around since 2018. And if you remember on Windows 8 Apex, it is obviously the extension, the development from that. You'll find all your MSIX packages which have been installed on your operating system within the Windows apps directory within program files. That essentially is a hidden folder which has all of the installed applications in there. It is essentially a zip folder of files with different types of files in there, which we'll get into. And the structure is very similar to an AppV package. So if anybody's familiar with AppV, the kind of structure, and there's some similarities, right? Big brother of AppV, really. And one of the kind of key points with MSIX is it is natively OS API driven. So what I mean by that is it doesn't need an agent on the machine. It's running via the APIs in the operating system code itself, kernel level. And the good news is it supports 64-bit and 32. If you are using an MSIX package, which is a benefit in my opinion, is you need to make sure it's signed, code signed with a certificate. And if you are going to be using the application for some time, it's also advised that you use a timestamp, because if you don't timestamp it, essentially when the certificate expires in 3-4 years time, you will not be able to use that MSIX package. So what I'm going to do now is just show you a little box on the screen. No, we're going to go and look at the structure of an MSIX package, and then PSF and a few other things. So first of all, what I want to do is talk about, we said what's inside an MSIX package, but I just wanted to kind of take a bit of a bigger look at it and a deeper dive into that. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the package payload. The package payload is essentially the application files. It's what's required for the application to work, right? And that sits in what we call the VFS, which is a virtual file system, very similar to AppV in that sense. You then got the app manifest, package manifest, as some call. I call it the brain because it's effectively an XML sheet which controls how that package works within the operating system. So all of the configuration for that package is within that manifest. You got a block map, which is effectively used for indexing and hashing each block of the data stored within the package. So that is important as well, because obviously that details kind of transferring information, etc. And then if it is signed, you will have an app signature on there as well. There's other files within this, but I'm not going to go into the great details. I just wanted to look at a high level of this. And there's a code integrity check as well. So if you're using Microsoft Store, you're uploading applications into the Microsoft Store or other kind of areas which require a code integrity check, then you need to make sure that is present as well. So just using 7-zip, we can have a look inside an MSIX package, and as you can see there is a number of files. Registry dat and user dat files are effectively the registry and user information. And as you can see there, you can see the app manifest, which is an XML. There's obviously content types and other things in there as well, and resource PRI, which are not really relevant today. The application data is in the folder VFS. So if you dive into that, you would see all of the app data executables and DLLs, etc. in there. So we're going to go on talk about success rates shortly, but first of all, I wanted to talk about the package support framework. And Tim Mangan's done an amazing job on this over the years, to be fair, using this framework as it is to fix up applications. What that means is MSIX is effectively a container type technology. So the application is running inside a container. And this is why MSIX is a massive benefit to an organization, because it's more secure than running natively. The manifest can control what the application does, to a granular level, which means you can apply security on the package, which then instructs what it can and can't do. And that's quite important. However, some applications don't or cannot function natively when transferred into container technology. So it's unable to kind of communicate correctly because there's virtual file directories, there's shortcuts, there's all sorts of different things, fonts, which may not function the same way as they would do natively inside the MSIX container. And to get around this, you would use the package support framework. You can use other shims as well if you want to do custom shimming, which is not simple, but you can do that. But effectively, the contents of a package support framework, there's a PSF launcher or multiple depending on the X's. There's a runtime, and there's fix-ups, and there's a config file. The config file is essentially all of the fix-up information you need for that particular package. So all of the redirection, all of the fix-ups will go in here, and then you call the PS launcher. Which is great because it has achieved an improvement in terms of success to using MSIX in the enterprise. And obviously, some applications are what I class as sealed, as in there's no more development and there's no developer around for it. And the only way to get that application running is to probably use the package support framework. And what does that look like? So when we look at the config file on the left-hand side, you can see all of these nice little fix-ups in here. And then obviously the components required for that are in there as these have been placed inside the MSIX container, and the manifest has been updated to point to the PSF launchers. However, PSF does have an impact, and the graph kind of here from some of the research and testing I've done in the past shows this. So if you look at just an MSIX with, and this is a small application, I think it was Notepad++, using PSF, you can see that it takes 1 second to launch because it's got to launch the launcher first, which then has to call the application and do all the fix-ups. So there's a delay. And then you can see here, if you just do it as an MSIX or as app attach, VHD, VHX, and Sim as app attach, you can see that it's half the speed. Interestingly as well, when you're using PSF, there's no way to notify that the PSF process is running. So when a user clicks on it and it's a large application, it's running through lots of fix-ups. The problem is you could be sat there for 3 minutes and the application is not loaded. Now, what will the user do? Well, the user may keep clicking that application. So, within a space of 25 minutes, you're going to have quite a few versions of the application showing. So that is also a challenge, which something needs to be fixed, and I've obviously raised that myself and others have too. So without further ado, let's get on with talking about the MSIX packaging tool. I'm going to do a quick demo showing you how to create an MSIX package, if that's okay with everybody. So first of all, I'm going to flip over to our video screen, and then we're going to basically run the video. So I'm install and download the packaging tool. I've already done that. I'm just going to launch that now. The first thing is there's a cog at the right hand side, and you can basically go through and set up the packaging tool so that you're not continually putting certificate details in, or there's some specific requirements for the packages you're going to create. And as you can see here, I'm just configuring that now, making sure that everything's already preset and configured. And once I've finished, I'm going to then put in I'm going to click the save settings. Before we do that, you can see as well there's other settings in here like file exclusions, registry exclusions, so you can really customize the packaging tool. And this is quite important for applications because each app's different and you may need to exclude certain things. So now I've done all of the settings, I'm going to go and create a package, and the package I'm going to do, nothing fancy, it'll be Notepad++. So first thing I'm going to do is click create a new package, and it's going to go through this check process where it's preparing the machine, understanding what's configured as the packaging driver there, window updates, pending reboot, and all that kind of jazz. Select the installer, And then obviously we're going to populate the details if they're not already there, which I've done that in the wizard. Fill out the information here, as you can see. So it asks you your name, display name, publisher details, version, which you need to put, and then package description. So once you've filled everything out, we can then continue to the packaging process. There's also an option for MSIX core, but that's usually for the older operating systems, which you shouldn't really be using anyway. Okay, so now it's an install capture. So we're going to run the application, which will essentially install the application. And while it's installing, this will do like a snapshot capture of all of the information into an MSIX. So obviously it's running. You can make changes to the application, configure certain things, and this information you change will be captured into the MSIX package as well. So you can go in here and make changes to some of the configuration and anything which is being saved and set, then the MSIX packaging tool will pick that up. Obviously, it's subject to the application. So if it's saving to registry the config, then the tool will pick this up. But if it's not, it's just maybe a JSON file, it may not pick it up. So just be aware of that. Now we're finished. Click next. You can see that the first launch task, you see the application file path and all the rest of it, and then we can then proceed. But in this case, I'm not going to proceed because I want to show you some. In fact, we'll go yes. So what you can do now at this stage is you can do the package editor. And the package editor allows you to kind of go in there and make changes, add registry, delete registry, add files using the packaging files. There's all sorts of things you can do, enable capabilities. There's various things you may want to do to modify. And if you're using the Microsoft packaging tool, you can use this to add the PSF files required if you're adding PSF fix-ups. And point to note, if you're using third-party tooling, which is probably better to use than the Microsoft tool, a lot of them have the PSF fix-ups and the kind of components pre-configured and inject into the package at the same time. So I'm just creating a version and saving that. So this is now going to go and create a package. Done that, as you can see there on the left-hand side, sorry, the package is being created. And if I launch that, you can see. So I'm not going to spoil the fun because we're going to talk about the app attach stuff in a bit. We'll come back to that. But obviously we're still in MSIX, so we'll come back to the bits where we show you how to use some of the community tooling I created to create the MSIX app attach images. So let's go back to the main screen. So I mentioned success rates, but I didn't go into it at all, which is something we need to talk about. Today in industry, there's over 7 billion applications out there in the wild. That's titles and versions. No one has done enough work or research on this to be able to make a statement that the success rate is X. Okay. People are testing 70 apps, 20 apps, 30 apps, but no one's testing in anger in the sense they have the data to actually provide an industry clear statistic. And I find it really interesting when I speak to all these other vendors at these events and things we go to, and some people are saying we're having 100% success. It's been brilliant. We're on MSIX, no problems at all. Others are saying we've had an absolute nightmare. It's not been great at all. So as you can see on the screen, we're seeing 60%, 20%, 90%. Some functionality might not work within that MSIX package, but it's usable. So users will see that as usable and they'll accept that as it is within the business. But the success rate still marks it as a fail, but even though it's usable in the business. So there's all these different variables out there. And quite frankly, you will not know the success rate of your organization unless you go through the process of assessment for MSIX and app attach. And we'll talk about app attach and some of its challenges separately. So that's my view and my message on the industry challenge with success rates for MSIX. And I know that Microsoft and the community are working very hard to kind of improve this on a regular basis. particularly Tim Mangan on the PSF package support framework stuff, has spent a lot of time and energy working on that. And obviously, like I've said, it all depends on each application. There's 7 trillion variations out there. Sorry, not billion, trillion variations out there. So, there's quite a lot to go at. So that leads me on to the next part of the session where we're going to be talking about MSIX app attach. And if I got rid of app attach, first we needed MSIX. So as it says on the tin, we're attaching apps using MSIX technology. What does that really mean? Good question, Ryan. And we'll come on to misconceptions. So before I get on to squashing misconceptions, let me just set the scene, give a little bit of context on MSIX app attach. So MSIX app attach is effectively, the term is expanded, where it's a extracted package onto either a virtual disk or a SIM image, and we'll talk about this in a minute. So when it's extracted, you can't just unzip it and place it onto a disk. It has to have system permissions applied to that as well for it to work. And effectively, all we're doing is we're allowing that MSIX package to be attached and delivered to the user on demand. It doesn't have to be installed or and saved into the application, the Win application directory. It's just attached and presented to the user. And we'll talk about the different kind of stages and processes for that. So it is an MSIX. So first of all, if the application doesn't go into an MSIX, you can't use MSIX app attach. Simple as that. That's the first thing. The second thing is, just because it works in an MSIX doesn't mean it will work as app attach. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. But just wanting to squash some misconceptions first. Drivers are not applications. There's been a lot of confusion and things bandled around over the years, and I'm seeing this quite often, is just because an MSI can install a driver or can configure a driver doesn't mean it is a part of the application. It's just a dependency potentially, or it is a component required for that application to work. So what do you do with drivers when you're using MSIX and MSIX app attach? Well, you just install it in the gold image. Simple as that. Do you know when you get a brand new laptop and it doesn't have the drivers, what do you need to do? You need to go and download them and install them on that machine. No different really. Microsoft Office and the add-ins installed today are not supported at the time of speaking on MSIX or MSIX app attach. So Office and Office add-ins need to be installed as a common application on the operating system itself. Print drivers, I keep using the phrase driver, install it on the image. The MSIX package cannot modify the operating system because it's container technology, and that's by design for security. So you're not really going to be able to do that. So just bear in mind that the MSIX package cannot make system changes. So if you've got an MSI which has got things like networking configurations or other, it isn't going to do the same within an MSIX package. However, you can use an MSIX package with package support framework to use as PowerShell script and other to make these changes onto the operating system before outside the container. However, that also introduces another term called WinRot. WinRot is effectively where it doesn't give you 100% clean uninstall. So MSIX allows you to uninstall with a 99.9% success rate, as in everything removed. If you start doing things and manipulating the MSIX package outside of the container and it writes to the operating system, you cannot expect it to remove them changes outside of that container because they've been hard set to the operating system itself. And MSIX does not support services. So if you've got a service in your application, extract the service and install that locally. It's not too difficult to be done, but if you use an app attach and you need to use services as part of them, get the service on the operating system and you can still attach the application. It's a workaround. It's not perfect, but it works. So let's talk about traditional app delivery versus MSIX app attach. So as you can see here, I've got 3 virtual machines. In some organizations, I've got hundreds. And I've got a sales, a finance, and a technical department image. In there, we've got the user profile, we've got common applications like Office, and then we need the sales apps for the sales image, and we need the technical apps for the technical image. So commonly, and it's very common, is everybody installs them on the image and have multiple images for each department, then deploy them images out. What if you could do this? So this is a diagram about how app attach technically offers you improvements. So first of all, you've got your gold image, one image I add with the common applications on there. Your FSLogix profile, containers attached, and then your departmental applications attached to the specific users and specific groups. You can also see application file containers as well. So you could potentially say that if it doesn't work in app-attach, I can still extract the application onto a disk and attach that for that user, which is offloading the application from the operating system, which is quite nice. So as you can see, the benefits of app-attach is that you're going down to a single gold image and you're attaching applications to the users. And one of the real big things about dynamic application delivery, because this is what it is effectively you can have a zero-touch type of application delivery mechanism. You can deliver updates to applications on demand. So you can deliver a new version of the application and then tell the users by a message that the old application will be removed within the next couple of hours, and then they need to start using the new one. So you've got more control over the user base and the use of applications within the workspace as well. So, app file containers, MSIX, profile, and the operating system. Let me just put that in there. So as you can see here from this diagram, you can see that we've got an operating system, we've got the profile, we've got MSIX, app attach, and app file containers. And why I'm showing you this is because these are 4 layers. We've got the operating system, which is the image. We've got the profile, which is delivered by FSLogix. We've got MSIX app attach for all the applications that can be delivered into MSIX app attach. And for all those that can't, but you still want to offload, you can use something called FSLogix app file containers, which effectively allows you to attach the application data, so the executables, dependencies, etc. files to the image or the session host, whatever it is, when the user is accessing the application. This allows you to effectively have what we call a composite desktop, and allowing you to have improved control over that. So this is predominantly we're kind of talking about Azure Virtual Desktop, but this can be applied to other workloads, spaces, all sorts of various different things, and you can even do this on physical as well. But so before you can even use MSIX app attach in Azure Virtual Desktop, you first need to create an MSIX-Package, which we've already seen. You need to then create the MSIX image, which we're going to talk about and show you a demo shortly. And then once you've done that, you then need to configure the storage provider, the storage system for the storage of the maps. So usually that's Azure files or it's Azure NetApp files. And it's a little bit fiddly because you need to give the session host permissions at system level to read the share, basically. So you're effectively giving the host permissions to access the file share to see the maps. And you also need to make sure that you've got a certificate and the certificate's installed on the session host, because it won't work if you don't. So why would you use MSIX app attach? I've kind of alluded to this throughout the presentation. MSIX is native in terms of the APIs are on the operating system. So, there's no need for an agent. The concept of attaching applications dynamically is very powerful. But yeah, there is room for improvement. Like everything, nothing's perfect. There's always really advancements. It's still a very valid, useful technology out there, and you can do it physical, virtual, and most workspaces now support that. Low packaging overhead and low user sign-on impact. That's quite important. So, agents are no longer a thing with this. APIs are the way forward. It's slicker, smoother. It's just a shame that, legacy applications, older applications are, the way some applications have been developed creates a few challenges. It doesn't mean it's not a successful, useful technology, and it all depends on the organization, the apps they use. So if you haven't done the assessment yet, it is very much a good idea, very wise to go and have a look whether you can enable this technology and how difficult or simple it would be for you to embrace MSIX app attach. And just to kind of talk about some architectural blocks for MSIX app attach. Again, this is baselined on Azure Virtual Desktop, just because obviously this is what was launched for app attach. Is you need obviously the Azure Virtual Desktop management plane to kind of control and manage and provision the packages, obviously for AVD, the session hosts, the MSIX images. If you're using Azure, obviously because we're doing Azure Virtual Desktop, you might want to consider private endpoints, Active Directory. In enterprises, and I'm going to come back to this, you should be using a certificate authority. You should be issuing out code signing packages from there to them packages. You shouldn't really be using self-assigned or public certificates unless there's a good reason to do so. And as I said about storage, it's typically Azure NetApp files or Azure files. We've done the certificates in the app groups already, so that's cool. So some tips for Azure, well, for enterprises, is Azure files did have a limit of 200 file handles. I believe that's being increased or has been increased. However, enterprise should really use NetApp files, so Azure NetApp files for more bang for buck, more performance. Latency is actually pretty good. You only need less than 400 milliseconds. So if you've got less than 400 milliseconds to storage, you can use app-attach. I've already said this about certificate authority, but you should be using certificate authority for MSIX app-attach. That's the best practice. Disaster recovery can be problematic for app-attach natively using Azure Virtual Desktop. I understand other vendors out there, like Nerdio and Co, do improve this and make it simpler because they have their own kind of libraries. You can use MSIX app-attach in the wild, like AppVentix and other Parallels, RAS. Lots of other organizations, Citrix are all, and VMware as well, are all using app-attach in some way, shape, or form. And also avoid bunching large numbers of packages together in a disk. If you take loads of apps and start packaging them all in one, and you've got a 30, 40 gig file, obviously that will have an impact to attaching, right? So image types, I've kind of talked about the composite file system briefly earlier on about the CIM images. That's why you use the term. And you've got VHD and VHDX disks, virtual disks. So the CIM is fairly new. So the composite file system is fairly new in the sense it's only been out a couple of years, but it's a bunch of files, flat files. As you can see there, you've got the CIM, which is the kind of, we'll call it the manifest, the controlling point, and then you've got region and object files, which control the data. The challenge you've got with CIM is it's great in the sense that it's fast, but obviously with all these files, it becomes a little bit fiddly in the sense of how you manage that. And if you don't manage it carefully, you can create something called CIM sprawl, where all of the files are all bundled together and you don't know which is which. When we look at an MSIX image structure, so that is the MSIX app-attached disk. It's called MSIX image. The structure of that is essentially you've got the app-attached image, which is the disk, is green. You've got the package and then the application inside the package. Interestingly, you can have multiple applications in an MSIX, and you can have multiple MSIXs in a MSIX image. Bit of a tongue twister there. And looking at the MSIX image packaging flow, so I've done quite a lot of work on app-attach over the years, and looking at how you can deliver various different formats and types. Quite frankly, if you wanted to create multiple, there's a lot of work involved in doing that, unless using third-party tools. Also, if you are using CIM, the native Microsoft tooling only allows you, MSIX MGR only allows you to create a single CIM. So again, you'd have to use third-party tools for that. But yeah, so you can do the basic stuff natively, but you need to be looking at a packaging product to help you get through that process if you've got a lot of applications. Certificates, as we've said, domain, self-assigned public certificates, all need to be uploaded to the trusted store. Someone said to me recently, well, is it a computer or user? And that's your choice. That's a design decision. If you do user, it'll have to be assigned to each user. If you do computer, it's assigned per computer, right? Okay, so we're just going to flip back to a little video where we're going to create an MSIX image. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to speed it up because for whatever reasons there. So obviously in our previous video, we spoke about creating the MSIX package, which we did, which was Notepad++. But before I show you, you can see the application icon there. There's a community tool. If you go to my GitHub, and you can find that by going to ryanmangansitblog.com. As you can see on screen, if you go to MSIX app-attach, what you can see is my GitHub, and then you can click on release and then download the MSIX-Package tooling. So you've downloaded that, install it, then you'll have that on your desktop. If you launch that, there's a few different features in there. You can mount sim, attach app attach scripts, and then also create a a MSIX image. You can create sim with it too. So I'm going to select the Notepad++, and I'm going to select an output of where I want that to be. When I get there in a second. And then obviously I just click create MSIX image, and what that'll do is it'll create me my MSIX image. Simple as that. Very quick, very simple. Obviously, very basic because it just does the single app in a single image, but allows you to kind of obviously create your MSIX image, especially if you're testing. Cool. So that's just a nice quick demo. But yeah, so if you need to access the community tooling, just head over to my blog, and you can find it all there. Okay, so let's talk about some troubleshooting. So I do have a something coming soon to kind of help with the logs and stuff in due course. But today I have something called the MSIX Log Explorer as another community tool which you can view, install packages and things. Obviously, also it has the app attach stuff for AVD. So if you're using Azure Virtual Desktops, MSIX App Attach, you can view all the logs and the information within there. And as you can see on the screen, there's some nice little tooling there to help you out. The steps of how it works with AVD, there's 5 steps, but as essentially the user logs on, the user profile is attached, and then the final step, the apps are then delivered to the host at the end, which the user then receives. Some of the terms, the text is pretty poor, so apologies. So expanding is effectively unzipping and applying system ACLs onto that. Staging is where the disk is attached to the operating system and made available to the user. So basically it's the disk is there, the app's provision, the system knows it's there. Then registering is when the application is made available and provisioned to the user. There's a delayed registration, which means that after the session is fully established, then the apps will then appear. And then on demand is allowing applications on a, whenever you want, sketch in session delivery of them applications, which is a great zero touch concept. I call it the Azure Files 9 Steps to Success. These are the 9 steps you need to take care of to ensure App Attach works correctly within your environment. So as you can see, add the computer accounts, reboot the VMs afterwards. That is a requirement because there's a little, I think it's a bug in the OS. I don't know why, but you have to reboot them anyway. There's a reason, but it's not being made very clear. Obviously, you can see create your storage account, create your file share, join it to Active Directory domain services, make sure you have the file permissions, NTF permissions, and then grant the NTF permissions to the user accounts. So follow these 9 steps to success, and you're good to go. Also, good candidates for MSIX App Attach. Well, applications that do not run services is a good start, and applications that do not require their permissions, because users typically don't have admin permissions. So it's not going to work. And services, again, run local services. Attaching a service, is that a good idea? No, it doesn't work very well. So if you have service, like I said previously or earlier on, it is advisable that you take them services, strip them out of the app, and put them into the image. It can be done. It's not overly difficult to do that, and that kind of alleviates that problem. So the service can run in the background, and then the application components will attach to them users who need to use the application. Not always possible, but that is a good workaround for some. Not elevated permissions, we know. And then applications which have incredibly complex dependencies. So it wouldn't make sense using app attach for applications which have like 17 or 18 different application components. You just make it very difficult for yourself. I would recommend that you put that into a common application on the image itself. So that kind of concludes the session today, just talking about MSIX and MSIX App Attach. I hope it was insightful, giving you some kind of tips. There's lots I could talk about here. I could probably do a series of about 10 sessions on the various different components of it. But just to kind of give you a taster really of MSIX and MSIX App Attach. If you want to know more about MSIX App Attach, I did write the book in March, released it in March 2020. Excuse for the blurry picture. And there's a whole section on MSIXAA, quite detailed, explaining everything you need to do for MSIXAA. So you can go ahead and grab a copy. And if you do want to grab a copy, as I stated at the beginning of the session, there's some discount codes there all the way from August the 30th to September the 30th. And then for the Amazon.com, for all of our American customers and others who have access to Amazon.com, you can obviously get that till October the 31st, and that's 25%. I believe the packet is only 20. It's just an Amazon promotion thing. I can't control that, so apologies. And also just kind of show you quickly the MSIX book, if I can. You can see in here some of the kind of topics which are covered with the book on MSIX and MSIXAA, how to package, the structure of an MSIX package, some of the information, how AppAttach works, terminology, obviously the process steps, creating things you should configure, image, different types of kind of MSIX image design. Are you on one app, two app, and all that kind of thing. Quite a lot of good information in there on AppAttach if this is something your organization or you were looking at to kind of roll out or use in anger. Like I said, there's lots of different things using the native tools, Microsoft tools, certificates, lots in there for you to kind of read upon. And a lot of field experience as well. So it's not like some of the videos you see where they kind of show you a quick start of using it. There's a lot of field experience which has gone into that topic for you to kind of take a look at. So that kind of completes this session, and I hope you enjoyed the content. If you do have any questions or you want to reach out to me outside of this, feel free to kind of reach me on my get it for you, Twitter, which is at Ryan Mangan, on my blog, or via LinkedIn as well. But again, thanks very much for attending the session today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.